Hello, and welcome to another solo episode on the Astro Bloom podcast. I'm Vanya Banks, your host, spiritual astrologer, and healing guide. So today I want to take some time to talk about the shifting of the lunar nodes into Aries and Libra. So this is an energy that's going to shape our collective experience over the next 18 months, so well into 2025. And this is really an energy that's going to allow us to individually and collectively step into our personal power, step into our individuality, step into our courage, and release relating patterns that are perhaps preventing us from doing this. So I'm going to start from the beginning in case you are not familiar with what the nodes are, and then I'll give you a bit of an overview of what you can expect based on your own rising sign. So a few things to remember are that this energy will most intensely impact people who have a significant amount of cardinal energy in their chart. So that would be Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn. And similarly, if you have your own natal nodes in any of those signs, you will definitely be feeling this energy quite a bit. And how this might show up for you is really whenever we're working with the nodes, they are one of the key sort of signifiers, points to work with in really like spiritual and karmic astrology. So they are involved in our eclipses, and I'll dive into that and give you a bit of a visual on what that looks like. But essentially, whenever we're working with the nodes, there's a lot of opportunity for accelerated spiritual expansion and growth. And most of our, spiritual expansion and growth really does happen through relationships, because we are a community of, individuals who do really need relationships to grow and to learn things. We can only do so much growth in isolation. But this is particularly true in Aries and Libra because this is the axis of the self versus the other. So what is going to happen is, especially for those signs that I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of karmic, meetings, endings, transformations of relationships that enable us to do those very things that I mentioned, when I just opened at the beginning. So first of all, what are the nodes? The nodes are called the lunar nodes. They're also called the nodes of the moon. You can also hear them referred to as the north node and the south node. And this is because there are two nodes, and every person has this energy in their own chart. Just like you have all of the signs in your chart, this is going to be affecting you personally in whatever area of your chart you have Aries and Libra in. But it's also going to be interacting with your own natal nodes, your own natal placements, depending on where all those land. So what are the nodes? The nodes are points in the sky. So they're calculated points in the sky where the sun and the moon's orbit cross one another from our view on Earth. And so these are our two luminaries that are involved in these points. The sun representing the conscious mind, that spark of life, life force energy, and the divine masculine. And the moon representing our subconscious mind, the divine feminine, and more of that emotional, hidden aspect of self, that inner self as well. So these are really those two creative forces in life, right? Like the feminine being that the thing that births sort of that creative potential, but then the masculine being the container within which that life is held and supported. So because these are these two really integral energies to our entire existence, this is why these points in the sky are so potent to work with. And I say points because like they're not actual planets, they're not things that we can see with, with our naked eye, or we wouldn't normally see it with our naked eye, but we can't see it even with a telescope because it's just a point in the sky. It's calculated. So we have 2 points. One is the north node and one is the south node, and they're always 180 degrees like opposite to one another. So they always happen in opposing signs. And what happens with these nodes is they, because of the way that we obviously orbit around the sun and all of that, they shift signs. So they move through the different constellations about every 18 months or so. So they shift into Aries and Libra from Scorpio and Taurus, where they have been since the end of 2021, on July 17th, 2023, at about 4:40 p.m. Eastern time. And there is some ambiguity with respect to, in the astrology community around which nodes to use. There's two different ways of calculating the nodes of the moon. There's the mean nodes and the true nodes. And so basically it just has to do with the way that the sun and the moon sort of orbit around us from our view on Earth, because obviously the sun does not orbit around us astronomically speaking. But essentially, I just want to say this because some people might be saying that this shift actually took place on July 12th, and some people might say it's taking place on July 17th. And both are right. Neither is, more right than the other. It's just really subjective to what speaks to you. The nodes, these two different ways of calculating the nodes really only differ by a few degrees. And because this is like a long-term transit, we're talking about energy that we collectively experience for about 18 months, we already start feeling it right before it happens. It's not like it's an instantaneous thing that we start to feel. And I would say that we also tend to feel it more once we actually have an eclipse triggering those exact signs. So we won't be having an eclipse in Aries and Libra until until October 14th of this year. So yeah, basically the North Node symbolizes the energy of the North Node. So whether it is in your own chart or whether it's the North Node in Aries that we're moving into on July 17th or July 12th, whatever school of thought you abide by, is sort of the North Star. It's where we are headed collectively and personally, because everything that happens at the personal level also happens at the collective level. So the North Node is this energy that we are being called to step into. And collectively, this is an energy in Aries of really learning how to step into personal power. If we think about the energy of Aries, it's the first sign of the zodiac. It's a cardinal fire sign. It bursts forward with this potential, with this passion, with this initiating energy. And it is a very individual energy. It's very concerned with the self. So there is going to be a sense of people really stepping into their individuality, learning about, their independence, how to step into independence, and how to also have the courage to do this, to be with themselves, to take a leap of faith, to step out of their comfort zone. At the same time, because everything is light and dark, because there is a yin and yang duality in everything in the cosmos, these are some of the light aspects of Aries. It is this ability to initiate, to be a leader, to kind of pave the way for others. At the same time, there are shadow aspects that we're going to be learning about collectively about this Aries energy. And that energy can be, self-righteousness. It can be sort of a, not specifically an arrogance, but almost like not really thinking before acting. There is this sense of also a certain combativeness that can really happen, and aggression. And that's not to say that feeling anger and feeling rage is not okay. It most certainly is. And I think a lot of us are going to be learning how to really work with the energy of anger and energy of rage that we might have held on to for a long time, and work on processing that. But there's this, kind of combustive quality, like this really explosive anger that maybe sometimes gets misdirected, or is just really present with that shadow side of Aries. And one of the other words that comes to mind when I think about the shadow expression of Aries is also selfishness. But at the same time, selfishness isn't necessarily, so to say, bad, because in order to be individuals, in order to be independent, sometimes we have to be selfish. So we're going to be learning all about that energy. And depending on where Aries lands in your chart, and what planets might be in the sign of Aries for you, you're going to feel this energy in that specific way. So the North Node is the unknown. It's the North Star. It's what we're reaching towards. The South Node, on the other hand, is in Libra. So it's going to be shifting into Libra from Scorpio, because they actually regress in the signs. And Libra is, the complementary energy to Aries. It is a Venusian energy, whereas Aries is a Martian energy. It is all about the other. It's about relationships. It's about the ability to give and receive love. It's about the ability to create balance and harmony, and to be in harmonious relationships with others. It's very much about our one-on-one relationships, whether those are romantic or platonic, or business relationships. But it is this. It's also this peacekeeping energy, right? It's that ability to create beauty and to maintain harmony and peace. But even though these are all amazing, beautiful qualities to have, there are also shadow aspects to Libra energy. And when we have the South Node in a specific sign, it is actually the shadow aspects that get highlighted, and that we need to overcome. We need to essentially rise to the highest expression of the South Node collectively, and to be able to grow into that North Node. So the shadow aspects of Libra energy really have to do with things like codependence, placing our sense of self in another that we are in relationship with, people pleasing, again, abandoning the self in some way, losing our sense of individuality, and really doing all of this in an effort to keep the peace, to keep the peace and the harmony in relationships, and doing it out of a fear of rejection and a fear of standing up for ourselves, really, because we're afraid that we might lose the love that we are currently receiving, and that we might be rejected for asserting ourselves. With an Aries North Node, we really need to learn how to assert ourselves. So one of the other things that comes up for me for Libra South Node really is there's really a shadow aspect of like wanting to please everyone else, right? And in doing that, we often abandon what we actually desire ourselves, because Libra is the heart chakra. It's connected to that Venus energy. And so it's really almost like an abandonment of our own desires, because we are trying so hard to make sure everyone else around us is happy. And in doing that, we are not able to step into that personal power. We're not able to follow our own path, and we might get lost, on someone else's path, because we're just trying to maintain the peace and maintain the balance. There's a serious avoidance of conflict that can come up, and there is almost like a polite dishonesty that can come up with the South Node in Libra energy, because we're always trying to maintain that peace. And so we might have a really difficult time communicating our truth, because of what we fear, what we fear the impact might be of that, whether it be rejection, whether it be causing someone else pain. And so really the way through this is to learn those qualities of Libra, like take those good qualities of Libra, those, I don't like saying good, but what I mean is light. Take the light of Libra. So the ability to be in relationship, to know that we do need other people in our lives, to be mirrors for us, to connect with, to give and receive love, and the ability to create those harmonious and balanced relationships, but to not sacrifice our own desires and our sense of individuality and our ability to assert ourselves in order to do that. So we essentially need to learn how to really be with ourselves first so that we can be in relationship with others, in those balanced relationships that we crave. And we need to do that with courage, and we need to do that with honesty. And this also really just in that sense has to do with like these relating patterns that might have been conditioned into us, through our lived experience, through our upbringing, through all of those things, and learning how to decondition those patterns, how to break those cycles so that we can show up in the relationships that we inevitably do want, but to be able to maintain that integrity of who we are as individuals. So two wholes making up a relationship versus sort of how I find a lot of, romantic stories and like very romanticized versions of what, I'm mainly speaking to romantic relationships here, but the kind of like typical love stories that you see in Hollywood and all of that. It's like always speaking to someone being like your other half and completing you and all of that. And that is very much, I would say, a shadow side of Libra energy, because we need to be okay with ourselves first. We need to know that there is no relationship without which we could not survive, before we can actually have that balanced relationship that we might crave. And that is, like I said, specifically in context to romantic relationships, perhaps, but I don't want you to just think that this is exclusively limited to romantic relationships. Real love, again, whatever form it is in, can only really work when we embrace that Aries energy. And that is to have the courage to enter necessary conflict, to assert ourselves, to share our truth, and be whole within the self, step into that individuality. The whole aspect of deconditioning these relating patterns as well really comes into play because we have Pluto in the critical last degree of Capricorn, squaring the nodes just as they transition from Taurus and Scorpio into Libra and Aries. And this square is actually active for the rest of the year, really, until Pluto moves into Aquarius early next year. And essentially Pluto, because Pluto is all about the shadow work, it's the deep subconscious. It is about reclaiming our personal power. It's about alchemizing our shadow, integrating our shadow aspect of self, and moving through that darkness to step into the light, to move closer to our soul and to our most deepest truth. There is this alchemization really that is happening. And I just want you to realize that no matter how dark things might seem at any point with all of this work that we're currently going through, this detoxifying, this purging, because Pluto also rules the detoxification system in the body. So whenever there is a lot of Pluto energy in the sky, we really are moving through these layers of almost like a detoxification. This is all happening for you to be able to move closer to that truth that lives deeply embedded in your soul and in your soul purpose. Of course, all of this is also happening on the new moon in Cancer. And I do have a post all about that on my Instagram at astrobloom.ca if you want to dive deeper into that. But it is really like all of this really is related to some of those early relationships that were mirrored to us, that were modeled to us in our upbringing. And we're really able to peel back the layers on understanding, how maybe some of those early relationships and those coping strategies that we developed in witnessing those relationships now show up in our own relationships that we have later on in life. So there is this deep deconditioning happening around, like I said, people pleasing, codependency, that maybe expectation to, have someone complete you, to the expectation that, especially I would say as women, everyone else comes first before you. That is being completely dismantled and unwritten with this Aries North Node. It's all about learning that there is no we without me first, right? Learning that there has to be that integrity within the person to actually be able to enter any kind of relationship, not just a romantic one, but any kind of relationship. So I would say the other thing I wanted to add to that before I go into the different rising signs and how this might affect you, I'll cover that briefly, is that, we really are, again, we're working with the heart chakra here and the solar plexus chakra. And the heart, again, is like really connected to our desires. And it's what we've been learning a lot about because the North Node was in the energy of Taurus since the end of 2021. And Taurus is the other sign alongside Libra that is ruled by Venus. And Venus is connected to the heart chakra. So we've been learning a lot about what do we truly value in life? What do we truly desire in various areas of our life? But now we're able to really take that knowledge and integrate it into the ways that we relate to other people and into our personal relationships. So it is very much about channeling this heart-led direction that we have uncovered, these desires, this path that we are walking towards the things we truly value in life, whether that be, having more freedom in terms of like time and location freedom. It might be having more autonomy in some way. It might be, you really value time with your family, like whatever it is. And then ensuring that your relationships that you are in allow you to abide by those values and that you show up in your relationships abiding by those values. And because we're leaning towards that North Node in Aries, Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars is very much that, willpower, that courage, that determination, that ability to take inspired action through the solar plexus chakra, the ability to manifest, that path that we see before us. And so there's a lot of ways to embody this energy. And I would say a lot of it has to do with taking inspired action, not being afraid to forge a new path for yourself, not being afraid to be on your own if it feels like you have veered off of that path or you've been sort of in codependent situations or places where you feel like maybe you've given up some of the things that you actually desire and value in life. But working with the fire element in general is going to be really important as we step into this North Node in Aries. So doing things like fire gazing, candle gazing meditations, really working on like burn rituals, working with activating breath work, for example, that really fires up that solar plexus. And then also in general, just embodying more of that divine masculine, right? Being able to take action, being able to be a leader, being able to really step into, that leadership role. And the other thing that I would mention for, stepping into this Martian energy, into this Aries energy, is to work with herbs that are really warming and spicy, for example. So some really great Martian herbs and herbs that are related to Aries energy that I love to use, because I actually have a general lack of fire in my chart, are things like cinnamon, nasturtium is a great one, and ginger as well. So nettles also a wonderful herb to work with this Aries energy, to work on activating the solar plexus, helping us, move towards that courage, that determination. Cinnamon tends to really provide like an activating and prosperous kind of energy to any rituals that you are doing. Nettles does have a lot to do with kind of building that internal strength, because it's a very nutritive herb. It's also really great for boundaries. I would say that boundaries are one of the things that are we're going to be learning a lot about setting and maintaining boundaries in relationships. And nettles are great for that. Ginger is really great for confidence, for being able to maybe step outside of your comfort zone. And yeah, I think those would be all great herbs to work with if you're feeling called to work with herbs. Of course, the Aries lunar tea has tons of nettles in it, and so it's a really great one to work with as well. You can find it on my website at astrobloom.ca/shop. I do have teas for all of the different signs, and yeah, I would really encourage you to work with these teas, but also with my ritual candles if you're really wanting to work with the fire element as well. And yeah, now for the different signs and how you might sort of at a very high level experience this energy, where you might be able to tap into it in your chart. So I'm going to go by the rising sign, because you should usually read your horoscope based on the rising sign. But if you want to go a bit deeper, you can, listen to also your sun sign and your moon sign and take that all into account. So if you are an Aries rising, there's really going to be a stepping into a personal power theme around, because this is happening in your first house, and you might really be letting go of certain relationships that are not in alignment anymore, that are not in alignment with this next version of self that you're being called into. You are being asked to strengthen those personal boundaries, to, like I said, release maybe some of those relationships that don't allow you to be independent, to follow your own path, and that might have some of these codependent or people-pleasing tendencies. Taurus. So Taurus, you've been probably, through a pretty intense last 18 months with the North Node being in your first house. And so you've likely gone into a big kind of personal overhaul recently, in terms of, how you show up in the world, in your identity, and like what you truly value, what you put out in the world. So with this next nodal shift in Aries and Libra, I think what you'll really be letting go of is maybe ways that you serve others through your work that keep you in that people-pleasing tendency. Maybe you ended up doing something as like work or in your daily life that doesn't truly align with what you desire. And so it's going to be about releasing certain habits, releasing ways that you are being of service that don't truly allow you to be your own inherent truth and your individuality. You'll be learning a lot more kind of about your conditioning, your subconscious patterns, and really gaining, taking your power back over some of those maybe subconscious patterns that are running rampant in your mind without you realizing it. Gemini. So I would say that you are really going to be learning about how to become a leader in the wider human community, how to pave the way for a brighter and more equal future for others. And you might be really releasing a lot of ways of using your creative energy in ways that feel perhaps disempowering or feel like they're not really in alignment with your truth, don't allow you to be to have full autonomy over your creative power. Cancer. So this will be happening in the North Node will be in your 10th house of career. I mean, this does really depend if you're using Placidus, which I do normally use, but for a forecast like this, it's easier to use whole signs. So I would say, yeah, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. It might not land exactly in your 10th house, but that's just something for more advanced astrology students to consider. So Cancer, likely there will be lots of changes in sort of the foundation of your life. I think there's going to be a lot of inner child work around understanding some of the patterns that have created a sense of security within. And there's going to be a lot of releasing of maybe things that don't actually provide that emotional security that you once thought did. And as a result of this, there also could be literal, like physical changes in your home environment, in your family environment. And you're going to really learn as a result of that how to step into a leadership role out in the world, in your work, in the legacy that you are building, because inherently, when we change some of these this relationship with our inner child and a lot of the inner work that happens with this type of transit, it really affects how we show up in the world and our public persona. So you're going to become more of, a leader, really, I think, in the work that you're doing out in the world and in your legacy. Leo. So you'll be learning a lot about expanding your own personal belief systems, maybe asserting your belief systems, expanding your knowledge in some way, and again, perhaps developing an autonomy over the things that you really like, your personal philosophy, the things that you really believe. And letting go of outdated communication patterns that, again, might be rooted in some people pleasing or codependency, things like that. Virgo, you will be going through a lot of transformation with this nodal shift, and there could be a lot of lessons around shared resources with people, intimacy, and how to, again, be an individual, but still be able to have these shared experiences, to be intimate with others, to be vulnerable with others, but to still remain that sense of, or to have that sense of like individuality and your own innate power, and not to sort of give that away to others. You will be learning likely about financial independence as well, because this is going to be transiting through your 8th house of shared resources. This also means that you will be releasing a lot around maybe the self-worth that you place in your possessions, and perhaps releasing, some of the physical possessions that you own as a result of that, that might be somehow enmeshed with others. Libra, this is going to be, the North Node will be in your seventh house. So again, similarly to Aries, this is going to be a quite personal energy to you, in the sense that it's also going to be very personally affecting like your one-on-one relationships with people. And you're going to be learning a lot more about that independence, that assertiveness, and how to weave that into your relationships, how to engage in necessary conflict, to really assert your truth and your independence. It does mean that you will likely let go of a certain identity in your life. So this could be, significant changes in your personal relationships that, result in changes in how you sort of perceive the world and how you show up in the world. Scorpio, the North Node will be in your sixth house, of sort of daily habits, your health, your the ways through which you are of service. And this really means you're going to be asked to step into that Aries quality when it comes to your routines, when it comes to how you are of service in the world. And, this really will require a certain assertiveness in that area of your life. At the same time, you will be releasing a lot of perhaps a lot of those subconscious patterns that are rooted in a need to please others. And, there's going to be some deep shadow work there with respect to your relationships, and really releasing some of those tendencies. Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, the Aries North Node will be in your fifth house of, the ways that we use our creative energy out in the world. And so I think there's really a sense of autonomy that you're going to be stepping into with respect to how you use your creative energy. And when I say creative energy, this really is the energy that is used to create, physical or mental children. It's the energy that really asks us to reproduce ourselves in some way. And so there's going to be, some action taken in that area of life to birth new things. And this also means that there's going to be a release of perhaps the need to serve others based on how they think you should serve them, how your creative power should serve them, and developing more of that freedom and autonomy in how you actually serve your community at large. Capricorn. So Capricorn, the Aries North Node will be in your fourth house. So the fourth house is all about that inner self. It's all about our family, our roots, our home. And with Aries being there, you're really going to likely experience, conflict perhaps with family or in the home, or really just be asked to set up some strong boundaries, for example, with those that you share roots with. Again, there will be an opportunity to also work with your inner child and really allow yourself to, take action and to initiate some healing of any inner child wounding that you might still be carrying. There could be, again, changes also to your physical home, and this might also really mean, because the South Node in Libra will be in your 10th house, it might mean that you're also really transforming the way through which you show up in the world, and the legacy that you're building, the career that you're in. Aquarius. So Aquarius, I think you'll really be asked to develop assertiveness in your communication methods, in the ways through which you use your voice. Owning the power of your voice really is what comes to mind here. And you might really be asked to transform or really release some personal beliefs that might not actually be yours, like that you might have picked up because it felt like it was the easier thing to do because you didn't want to raise conflict with people that might not agree with you. And so yes, there's going to be really a release and a transformation, I think, of your personal philosophies, and the way in which you are able to then share that wisdom, the wisdom that is really true to you and not perhaps some of those beliefs that you picked up, using an assertiveness in your voice. And finally, Pisces, the Aries North Node will be in your second house. And this is the house of, the things that you own, your self-worth. And so I think there's really going to be an opportunity here to take action, to maybe invest in some physical security, to really ask you to maybe step out of your comfort zone when it comes to your self-worth, to really own the things that you feel you are deserving of. And as a result, there's likely going to be changes in terms of the things you're letting go of being in your eighth house of shared resources. So letting go of, the perhaps issues with intimacy, trust, also, there's a lot of financial changes that are possible with the second and eighth house being triggered. So just want you to keep that in mind for Pisces. And yeah, if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to hear from you and to chat astrology and help you on your path. So feel free to comment or send me a message on Instagram at astrobloom.ca. All my information is in the show notes. And thank you for listening. Happy new moon in Cancer, and have a lovely day.